Welcome back to another episode of Warren Cali. In this episode, I will detail the real story of Boys in the Hood character, Doughboy. One out of every 21 black American males will be murdered in their lifetime. Most will die at the hands of another black male. These facts are flashed on the screen at the start of the Boys in the Hood movie. The movie
That is true. That's facts. Not gonna lie. Kind of feel like it's a little bit more, as days progress. But, you know, hopefully motherfuckers wake up. Black and brain.
Boys in the Hood was one of the first visual looks describing the aspect of the hood, in a coming-of-age story based upon multiple young boys growing up in the inner city of South Central Los Angeles. John Singleton initially developed the film as a requirement for his application to film school in 1986 at USC. John had to come up with multiple ideas for films, and one of them was called Summer of 1984, which describes several incidents in John's life.
You in the film program?
I got in the film program, and I was one of like 14 African Americans in a program that had like 2,000 students, and
Summer of 1984. I gotta look into that. Not gonna lie. I don't know how I haven't seen that. And if I have, I probably just didn't know the name. But other than that, check into that. I know Boys in the Hood is a banger. We all know that.
and since my success, they've admitted more than that. But I mean, when I was there, I mean, dudes used to look at me and be like, oh, well, you should just give it up, because you're black and you'll never make it, and they, we're gonna make.
That's true. So I be told that all the time, especially about this me starting to try to idolize this YouTube thing that I'll never make it. I even got a comment on a video recently, like, bro, chill out. All that energy you got, I only got what, like 20 subscribers. Don't hate on that, bro. You're still working.
Make movies, and you're never make movies, and it's just like, after a while, I was like, I was trying to be cool with people, but I was like, you know what?
When you're busy or you have a great idea, you just want to get things down on paper. Grammarly is always catching things that you need.
Kill this, So I just stepped to everybody after that, and I was like, listen, I'm gonna make movies. You are not gonna make movies. You have nothing to talk about. I have life. I have a life. What are you gonna talk about? You're gonna talk about growing up in Encino?
John later sold the script to Columbia Pictures upon his film school graduation in 1990. During writing, he drew inspiration from his own life and from the lives of people he knew. He also insisted that he direct the project because he felt like he was the only one who could capture South Central in the right way. The film began production in 1990. With Columbia Pictures behind it, Boys in the Hood emerged as the first all-black movie about the urban life of LA to be backed by a major studio. More important, it was one of the first times a young African-American filmmaker has dealt with issues describing his generation, from family issues, gang turf wars, and also crack addiction. The film Boys in the Hood will go on to star veteran actors like Lawrence Fishburne and Angela Bassett, but many up-and-coming young actors like Morris Chestnut, Cuba Gooding Jr., Nia Long, and also rapper Ice Cube will be in the movie. Ice Cube will go on to play the character Doughboy.
John Singleton, he's a 22-year-old brother. This is his first movie. He just graduated out of USC.
They saying Fatback is Doughboy. 107 Who. Never knew that.
It's a movie about South Central Los Angeles. He's from South Central Los Angeles. So the story is very sincere, and it hits home. That's why I did it, and he worked with me a lot, So I haven't seen the final edit of the whole movie, but I've seen clips of, I think it's pretty good.
What's the character that you play?
Character named Doughboy. He's a guy, he comes from a family with just his mother and his brother. And, it's about a guy who went the wrong way. His brothers play sports, and he's like been an adolescent. He's been a juvenile delinquent. And it's all about his life now compared to his brother's life.
It's not a documentary, but it's so close to one. The Temptations in a place like Compton is much more than the Temptations in Iowa for a kid. I mean, it's this close from a documentary,
Boys in the Hood would go on to leave a major cultural impact in the urban community, being one of the first films describing the inner city life, and it would be a big box office success, grossing $57 million and only with a budget of $5 million, and even getting John Singleton numerous nominations and awards.
There's a new movie that really cuts to the heart of an American crisis, Boys in the Hood. It is an important movie. This movie was written and directed by a young black man who is only 23 years old.
I did the film actually to show how the difference between what a responsible, open-minded black man would do in raising his son. And so I could contrast that to the way,
Rest this man's soul, girl, for real. John Singleton. Bangers would have still been coming out. He'd have been able to just, come on, bro. He was literally giving us this straight from just living around it. Like, as alleged as we can get it. Rest up, King.
his son's two friends would be raised just by their mother.
Mm-hmm.
And what we show in this film, there's a mother in the film who raises her two sons, and one she overly loves, and he becomes irresponsible and a teenage father. And the other one she doesn't love enough, and he becomes a gangster.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Doughboy, that's Cube's character.
Is the story that you told in Boys in the Hood your own story?
Well, the story of Boys in the Hood is just a catalyst for me when I went to live with my father.
Mm-hmm.
But what many people don't know is, the movie Boys in the Hood is the actual life of John Singleton. Most characters in the movie are true characters in real life. John and even the character Trey are the same person. And Trey's father and mother in the movie are based upon John's actual parents. Growing up, John initially lived with his mother, where she lived in Inglewood, in the Inglewood family Gangsta Bloods territory. At just 11 years old, John went to live with his father. And most things in the film are true, like the guy breaking into their home, and his father shooting at the guy, and also the black policeman even saying, "You should have got him," among several other things in the film. And also the character of Doughboy was the actual best friend of John Singleton. The real Doughboy's name was Michael Winters, and he went by the name Fatback. Once John moved with his father at the age of 11 years old in 1979, he moved on to 101st in Vermont, which was in the 107 Hoover Crypt.
Can you imagine if life was still like this, like from back in the day, nothing evolved, like no cameras on every block? That's crazy.
Territory. This was the same area that Fatback and several other kids who became John's friends lived on and became from. John and Fatback became friends in the 6th grade. They went through everything together, from fights, learning how to skateboard, riding the bus, and starting to take interest in girls, and just overall survive.
Look at the quality of this camera. Wow. What's that, like negative 2K? I mean, it got to be better than my camera, probably.
In South Central. John would say that Fatback was a talkative kid growing up. He always spoke his mind and never gave a fuck, like the character Doughboy. At the age of 12, Michael gave himself the name Fatback, and he was already repping 107 Hoover. The 107 Hoovers were founded in the 70s as one of the gangs in the Hoover Alliance, which currently includes gangs like the 5 Deuce, 5-9, 7-4, 8-Trey, 9 Deuce, 9-4, and 11 Deuce Hoovers. The Hoovers are one of the most hated and deadly gangs of Los Angeles, so growing up in this area is definitely tough. John stated in an interview he grew up in his early teens around mainly 3 friends, one being Jimmy, another friend named Michael, and Fatback. As they got older, John's friends got deeper into the streets, just like the movie reflected, but he locked into school and his studies. The summer of 1984, with all them being 16, is what marked the overall change of everyone. The streets of Los Angeles were full of blood and
So was that cop that said, "I hate Whoopi Goldberg's lips"? Was he really a cop?
Crip gangs, gang violence, racism, and drugs. Fatback by this time was a full active gang member for the 107 Hoovers, smoking weed, drinking, selling drugs, getting into fights, and all type of violence and situations in his community, and others was the norm. Fatback would later state in a 1991 interview, "It's a part of growing up around here. Hanging around with the in crowd on gangs turf, violence comes with the territory." As the years grew, John locked into school and later went to college and also started a film career, and Fatback locked into the streets. Fatback considered moving out the hood, but he felt anchored there. He said in a 1991 interview, "It's my block, it's my street, and my name's written out there in the cement. The gang."
For real. Awesome. Feel anchored somewhere. Honestly. No matter how much you work, how much work you put in, or how much dedication you have in you. It's more. I believe it's more than that. It takes more than that. Like, I'm trying to lock into something else. Hopefully, it works out for me.
Things are still here, but when you get older, you get out of that
Right.
stuff. You start thinking about ways to make money and doing something else with your life. Even though both John and Fatback took different paths in life, they remain close friends. You can often see both men together all the time. John even had Fatback at several movie premieres and also several events he held.
Y'all might not know me, but probably know my character. Ice Cube portrayed my role, my character.
Hey, what's up, guys? I found this beer left over from some campers, and I'm totally wasted. I'm sorry I bumped the camera.
The original Doughboy. Now I'm gonna tell you, I'm a childhood friend of John Singleton. I mean, I couldn't even ride a skateboard. I used to put my knees on the skateboard and push it. We couldn't even cross the street. John couldn't cross the street. My god brother Kevin Orange, he the one who introduced us. He was like, Michael, you want to play with him? That's Danny's son. He walked me and my skateboard across the street and held my hand. And we played together, and we became best friends. I mean, it's been an adventure ever since then. I mean, growing up with John, growing up in the hood is an adventure. So I'm gonna tell you now, boys in the hood, it's real. It's real.
In 2017, Fatback would even take part in John Singleton's documentary, LA's Burning. But Fatback would unfortunately die to cancer in 2018, leaving a major impact in his community and his life being one of the most memorable characters in movie history. John Singleton would even go on to make a show called Snowfall, and even made a character in the show named Fatback, perhaps in the honor of the original Fatback. And the character in the show was known for being honorable, respected, and loyal, with the original Fatback being said to have the same qualities. Unfortunately, a year after Fatback's death in 2018, John Singleton died from a stroke in 2019.
Director John Singleton has died. He was the first black filmmaker ever nominated for a Best Director Oscar for his groundbreaking 1991 classic Boys in the Hood. He is also the youngest director ever nominated. Singleton went on to explore themes of race and...
I remember seeing this on the ground. It's like certain people deaths flood your timeline. Singleton was one of them. Everybody comment section, you can go search it up. Snowfall, all that he did, trust me, like it's all remembered. Legendary, brother.
Class in films like Poetic Justice, Shaft, and Baby Boy. He was recently acclaimed for his work on American Crime Story, The People vs. O.J. Simpson. John Singleton suffered a stroke last week. He never recovered.
John Singleton's childhood contributed to a major genre of movies and inspiration to many, and his childhood friends' circumstances show how the outcomes in the inner city can lead kids down the wrong path. Both men from the same area had two different paths in life. Both made it out the streets and lived beyond the hood. R.I.P. to both. This will conclude this episode. If you haven't already,
shout out to Warren Cali. If you haven't already, go like and subscribe to bro. All his content is heat. Cut straight to the point. And like this video and subscribe to my channel will be a big help for me to get into the algorithm. Let me plant my feet. I'm still learning. Peace.